Recording is in progress. John Moss, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you open screen share? It's showing it's disabled right now for me, please.
Yes.
So I'll start while you're doing that. So hello, everybody. And first, I'd like to thank Creator for bringing us all together. And Andrew, of course, for your introductions. And I know for quite some time, Lloyd as well, you both obviously have been working to help me meet with everyone and share some information. And timing wise, I'm glad we're able to do so today. So I appreciate it. And I recognize many of you on the call, so thanks. And jokingly, Lloyd, I have to say, I thought Herschel Daniels put a lot of links in the chats as we go along. you and he are right there. That's great. That's good to do, so everyone can have that. So my information's in the chat if anyone needs to reach me for follow-up. I welcome that. And let's see. Okay. So can everybody see that clearly?
Yes, thank you.
Is it too big or?
We can read everything there. We're good, John, go.
So, all right, so let me go ahead and start with this, and I appreciate everybody taking a notebook or making some notes and follow up with me in emails, because while I'm going through this due to time, I'm not going to be reading chats that much, okay? So, and maybe the host can let me know if someone raises their hand and really has a question. So my name's John Moss. I'm the grandson of the picture here of my grandfather is Michael Martin Chief Silvermoon. His true native Indian Caddo name is White Moon. And we're from the Hasinai band, which is the chief clan of the Caddo Indian Nation, who traditionally, and it's still noted in treaties, going back to as well the Treaty of 1835, that our lands originally were all the way from Louisiana up into a small portion in Canada, Lloyd. So, so with all of that, the middle part of the United States is where our lands traditionally were before genocide and many other things took place. But the Treaty of 1835, my great-great-grandfather, Chief Oates, signed, which is allowed what is known in the United States, the 5 civilized tribes, to have a place to go through and be in Oklahoma and Texas, so that they weren't completely genocide, even though that is still going on with generational trauma. So that is what we are, similar to a lot of what you shared, Lloyd. We've been working for a holistic approach, as is culturally taught, that we're able to maintain and have a balance of life. And with that is self-sustainability, so we're not reliant on others. And in the United States, we are the only race in the United States that is required to register and be recognized only through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, through the Secretary of Interior, for reservations, which really were traditional war camps. So Sorry, all these images come flying through my head. But that is a department of the War Department, and reservations were put there to control and change our people and our culture. We weren't allowed to speak our own tongue, taking away our language, dances, spirit, trying to take all these things and our spirituality, yet we are all still here. So my main background is banking and finance through the years. I've done many other things as well, all around the world. And I'm the only real estate mortgage trainer in the entire United States with the letter of recommendation on ethics and non-predatory lending. During all this time, we were doing community outreach with different sponsors. And when I say the letter of recommendation from the top banks in the United States, no one ever has gotten that recognition other than myself in the United States ever on ethics and non-predatory lending. And that was also during and after the mortgage debacle crash. So that led to me and my board and people I was working with already with community outreach, where they said, well, you need to form a nonprofit and be able to still do that. So that is what developed with Cash Community Development, which stands for CADO, which is my tribe, Assets, Services, Help, Community Development. And we're a 501c. Our main focus is financial literacy, business and economic development, predominantly with what is known now as Native American, First Nations, Indigenous people, including Hispanic, Alaskan Native, Oceanics, so forth, and African American. And around that, our other main focus is the military. Native American people have almost a 12 to 15% higher enlistment per capita into the military in the United States since the 1800s. So that is what that is. And then later, Native American Trade Information Office is because we were approached through the World Development Banks, multilateral banks, to be part of the U.S. Department Chamber of Commerce, U.S. Commerce Department, I should say, because there's different programs and funding. One is sole source funding. Many of you may have heard of that. And a lot of people don't know what the IMF fund is, multilateral banks, etc. But that's what part of all that is. Matter of fact, today on Bloomberg, they were talking about the IMF is reporting that we are about to hit the 50-year low of financial challenges in the world, and we better be preparing. So that's part of, I'm sure, why all of us are working towards this, right, Lloyd? So I see your head shake, so it's good. and with that, we've been working closely with PDI, Friends of the African Union, NCRC, military, and other networks, okay? So these procedures, and again, we have non-disclosure, non-compete agreements because sovereign nations are their own nations and sovereignty, supposedly, under the US. So they don't want everyone knowing who and where they're getting funding from and projects in some cases, so we respect that. This is our board of directors, and our board of directors, everybody here has a Native American affiliation. And then our board of advisors are people that are respected to have like-minded mindsets, like Herschel Daniels, Maggie Dodd White Eagle is on our board of advisors as well, who has worked heavily in Canada and continues to do so, who we do a lot of work via the networks there. And we encourage all of you to work with us on that, including with the lumber and fisheries and green self-sustainable farming products. Okay, so you can read about all those. And then over on the far right side, you can see my handsome young son, Jason, who's 24. He heads up our youth programs because that's a huge part of us working towards everything holistically, because our youth are our future. And I do want to point out Randy Edmonds here is our senior board member. He's also my cousin. He's Kiowa Caddo, and he founded the San Diego Indian Human Resource Center. My mother, Pauline Janelle Martin Moss, helped him as well in finding the Native American Indian Center, which is in Fountain Valley, California, one in Los Angeles and one in the Inland Empire. Both have been around now over 50 years. Many of you in Canada area or region may recognize, sadly, the name of Roy Samsel, who was on our board of directors early in, who's now transitioned, as well as David Lester, or Beaver, who's transitioned. He was the founder of what are some of the largest Native American, and both of them have worked in it with Randy, organizations like RES and Native American Indian Congress, so forth. They were the beginning points, and David found certified energy resource tribes, because many people go to tribes and try and present green, sustainable projects that functionally are not even feasible, but they're hoping that they can get funding before Native people find out, or their contractors. And that's still going on today. So we're working to help provide proper information. This is more information about our nonprofit. Due to time, I recommend all of you go to our website and you can see more of this, but you can see the focus is, language arts are an integral part, right? As well as supportive services, reservation and non-reservation. There's about 576 federally recognized tribes, but there's also almost 3,000 or so unrecognized US tribes and in the United States. And that is not right, even that we have to go through that process. But just a good example, our sister tribe, the Ada Caddo out of Louisiana, who in Louisiana, you have the Caddo Parish, which is part of our original lands, okay? They are not recognized federally, yet that's where a lot of our people had their longest walk, the Death March, up through to Oklahoma, where now our reservation, if you will, is in Binger, Oklahoma, which is about an hour south of where I'm at in Lawton, Oklahoma, next to the Fort Sill military base, as well as other tribes. So like the Comanche, Kiowa, Delaware, etc. So these are all statistics that we're working to change, and they're documented, and they are worse. But in a nutshell, sadly, no race in the United States has more statistically proven issues or challenges than Native American people. We are a third world nation within the United States, and that is part of why it's harder for us to get some of the sustainability that other nations around the world are able to get, because they have more of a true sovereign nation, if you will. So there are certain things that we have to show as Native people to the government to be signed off and approved as that. And here's another example of deaths, higher percentage, alcohol, drug abuse. The highest rate of suicide and addictions in the United States is between US military, and it always has been as well, Native American people. And won't have time to go into all that right now. We do have a grant on our page. We have donation site with many of the different projects we're working towards. One of them is suicide prevention and addictions. Sadly, my 20-year-old son committed suicide in Huntington Beach. He was handicapped, and I've been fighting the courts for custody. But as an example, my ex-wife didn't even know a handicapped boy that works full-time at Taco Bell and going to college was in his room dead for 2 days. She didn't even know until my younger son broke the door open and found him. So we've got to prevent all of this proactively, not reactively. This is an example of part of our goal. I'm putting on here with partners a free financial literacy to over 750 people and families on housing and finances and credit and insurance and et cetera. And with that, when they go outside, they're able to meet with professionals that are all vetted. And my big thing is we need ongoing funding and support to do more of these events. But just as if you went through Gamblers Anonymous or addictions or Alcoholic Anonymous, you have ongoing coaching and ongoing meetings. Yet in the financial world and housing, that doesn't happen. There's not the ongoing coaching and everything that's needed. That's part of our goal, is to get enough sponsors to do that. Here's some statistics on challenges in Native America, United States, and this also includes our brothers and sisters in First Nations in Canada and other areas that 1 in 5 homes lack plumbing, right? And less than 52% are connected to public sewers. You can even look at Diane Sawyer's event on Dateline, where she went to the Navajo Nation, and they recently did another story on it with COVID. But the reality is there's people a few miles, or mile in some cases, from Flagstaff and other resort communities where they don't even have running water. They can't wake up in the morning, flush a toilet, get a pot of coffee going, do their dishes with water. They have to collect their water every few days and bring it back, just as many of the third world nations around the world are forced to do, as Andrew and I always talk about. So these are some more statistics. Again, these things are on our website regarding housing and the need for housing, because it brings, again, other issues of despair, alcoholism, tuberculosis, diabetes. We have really high diabetes issues as well, and health. I'm diabetic as well. So we work, and with my background in housing, you can see as an example on my Facebook page or website, I have a letter of recommendation from the Dene people, which is Navajo. The true name is Dene. And they're the largest nation, as well as the largest landowner of a recognized nation in the modern world. And they were having the risk of losing their HUD financing for housing. So our organization and networks came in, helped prevent that, and now they gave us a letter of recommendation that every tribe, every nation should be meeting with us and utilize our services so that their people are better able to self-support and be sustainable and have use of homes, okay? There is also a program, just so everyone knows, similar to the VA loan, where people use their DD-214 and military status to qualify for a VA loan in Native America or Indigenous, Oceanic, Alaskan Natives. You use your tribal registration card, and that program is the HUD 184 loan program, and there are others, but that's just one example. And one of our sponsors, bank, which is the Chickasaw National Bank, the largest native-owned, largest HUD 184 lender in all of Oklahoma, is one of our sponsors. So we help get people that want to know more to them. So again, on our website, there's all kinds of resource information that's free. And I welcome you guys to go there. And like Lloyd and everybody, we're always looking for more sponsors, donations to be part of what we do. So here's the two avenues. We have our Native American trade information, which is larger projects, which I'll show you in a moment. And Lloyd, if I get close on time, or Andrew, let me know. I'm just going as quick as I can.
No, you have time. It's your convenience. We're on your
Okay.
time, John.
All right, thank you. So we provide financial funding and opportunities through our networks, ideally. So we normally go to a nation, people's small business, large business. Again, we're open to meet with everyone we can. And ideally, they make some kind of a donation or a nonprofit so we can keep doing these kinds of things, or sponsorship. But in doing so, what we do is we sign a non-disclosure, non-compete. So that, as an example, a lot, especially with tribes, a lot of tribes hire people that have been or are part of other nations or non-natives. And then with that, there's certain US funds or world funds that people go after. And what sadly you don't want to have, just like in any business, is, oh, I heard about a project where we can get funding for farming or water rights or whatever. And this is what we're doing. You guys should apply for it. And then everybody starts competing for the same thing. But the project of who hired them to work for them and help them get it, sometimes those things happen, as we know, in any political arena. Is that a fair statement to everyone? Nod your head so I could see. Lloyd, yes? Yes, fair statement? Yes? Okay. So when we do find out what are their goals, short, medium, long term, then ideally they share with us, and then we help bring solutions. So we're about bringing solutions to them through our networks, which could be like Project Development International process, or public-private partnerships, IMF funds, sole source funding. There's a lot of those things. And in that, some of you on this call are somewhat networked with us right now, but we're looking to do more. And then we work towards grants, fundraisers, donations, and other, in-kind trade. Then more of the cash community development side is more of our education workshop opportunities using the seminar format below, because sadly, a lot of people we reach, they're like, oh, that's a great idea. We need to do that. Let's do it. And then they go, but how do I make money? Well, because of a lot of the guidelines and things, there are certain things like in housing and real estate and so forth, that things are considered a kickback. Before some of these new laws that have made it, if you notice, in my opinion, a lot of these new laws, people are less educated about finance and business because it's harder for community NGOs and so forth to help support, because it's harder to get sponsorship or even supports. So they can even get in trouble as far as like providing licorice in containers at an event, just so people have something to smile while they're listening. That can be considered a kickback. So all these things. One of the title reps I know, he took people to a $50 lunch and was fined $300,000. So again, all these things, they're supposed to be protectors, and there are some good, but as we all know, sometimes the pendulum swings to the far side when they try and correct. And in my opinion, I mean, you didn't used to be able to drive along the 405, the 5308, et cetera, in California and see family after family after family in tent camps and everything else. It has become horrific. And a lot of that is we aren't doing enough with ongoing financial literacy coaching and holistic approach. And part of that obviously is, putting songs, culture, and some fun and time with our youth. So Native American Trade Information is approved liaison with all these institutions. And again, this is just one of the access points or some of the access points that we utilize. But again, more of this is on our website. And then what does that mean? Well, what it means to everybody, here's a great example. Wonderful nation people in Pendleton, Oregon. This is in Pendleton, Oregon area. This is the Umatilla tribe. And part of what my passion and background has always been is helping to set up call centers, data centers, because it is a location where people in the community can come together, get very well paid jobs, have their benefits, and you can even do housing nearby in the community, so like community housing, that now people are able to work and be in the same area. And my thing has always been use it as a training format that those that have normal issues in life, my wife is now pregnant. My mom sadly was diagnosed with cancer, and my wife wants to go help her out, whatever. They can work from home. But imagine if we had more of these facilities prior to COVID, how many more would be available? So this, you guys can see this going on my mouse, I hope. But the beautiful picture here is Kaios Technologies, which is a call center, data center with many areas in there. Look how nice these and roomy these call center spaces are. And to the far right, you'll see this empty room where they have the capability, and they have been expanding to do more. And just as an example, they just received contracts for $90 million ongoing to this community in Pendleton, Oregon. And part of the big challenge that, like many nations face when you're doing this, is you still have to have the proper demographics of people living in the area, being trained, working there. And then of course, there's gonna be some turnover to a point. So how do you keep and maintain your seats? But again, with technology, you can have people remotely working from other areas, even in nearby communities, because they are in more of a rural, beautiful area. And I know these pictures are small, but as an example, and we have networks that have helped build and do all of this, from the surveying, the funding, etc., for their gas stations, their economic diversity plan, where they have all these are business buildings, administrations, administration building, education fund areas, etc. And then around the call center, as you can see on the far right side, there are a whole business park area where the ground has already been prepared so that you can have a turnkey solution. You can come in with a building project and all your cabling's done, modern technology, etc., your water, your sewage, right there. And now you're on the advantages of Native America. Now, the other advantage to everybody when you work with the Native American nation, you will have, just so everyone knows, there are protections for everyone, non-Native and so forth, and waivers that make sure you always have legal information. But along with that, that means that there are programs for workforce training, for people to come in that are Native American, go to your project and work within your company. And within 90 days, you're able to decide, as an example, some of this may vary on guidelines, but ideally is they're working with you for 90 days and their paycheck is picked up by others. And let's say before the 90 days is up, you decide, you know, Cheryl is certainly wonderful, but we need to move her to another division or find something else. but she's not going to work for this program that we've been working and training, and we've seen her for almost 90 days. So we need to not bring her on full time. But what does that mean overall? Your company was able to test somebody before in many markets, you have to pick up their unemployment and everything else should they be released. Is that a fair statement to everybody? Can someone shake their head, raise it? Yes, okay, good. So the other is it brings third world development tax benefits because why? You're a sovereign nation. So there are a lot of US government projects, military projects. I think there's a need for military funding right now, development quickly. I would say yes. Well, around all that, when they come to the US, they get tax benefits and similar to what I've just spoke to. But around and so we help become the relationship network for that and the facilitator as our nonprofit, then and our business partners. And then around that is, as an example, a lot of those projects that are taking place are tied to colleges, credits for students, et cetera, et cetera. So all that is working in. So as an example, I've recently been asked to become a board member of a facility with Haskell Indian University, which is in Kansas, which is like the Harvard of Indian nations. I'm also the president or chamber president for the World Conference of Mayors and Historical Black Towns and Settlements with the Honorable Johnny Ford, and many people on this call are also members. But I'm of the chairman for the Indigenous people because we, which I'll get to, we introduced the Indigenous Peoples Plan at the United Nations. And a lot of this is all prior. Again, these projects go back. I've been working in Indian country since 1981, which on our website, you can see letters of recommendation from mayors and Indian councils and et cetera. So, because again, I'm really carrying on a life legacy. This here is a good example of a lot of projects that are in Indian country, meaning Indian lands, that are defunct business properties or things that were beginning, funding didn't work all the way through, or changes in the environment, whatever it might be. This is a good example of here in Oklahoma, the Delaware Indian Nation owns this whole facility outright. And within this, there's several other areas that I could show you, but are like this room here is a sanitized room. So for high level technology, that was the feeder. And all this was going to be used for hydroponics growth, proven from this gentleman here from Taiwan relationships. That is a doctor, Dr. Mao. And with that, I made these relations all over the US, including the banks where he's bringing us. He was an engineer for Raytheon, and he was the one that developed, as a plane starts to land, it reads the ground level so you don't crash into the ground. He was the one that developed all that. Okay, brilliant man. So here's an example. I introduced him to the Comanche Nation, and we met with their board, their council, and again, under Indian Seas, they shared their goals. To my right is my honored dear friend and board member, Bernard Carrara. Bernard Carrara is former Comanche chairman, and there's a point where if you don't follow all the guidelines, like any grant or funding, you can lose or have your assets frozen. Well, that happened to the Comanche Nation. He became chairman and got it all fixed and corrected, as he's helped other nations do as well. and through networks that we're tied into via him and others. So now the Comanche Nation is doing extremely well. They own 5 casinos and they have many other projects that I'm out here helping and developing. Then I speak at and have spoken for a couple decades at different events. This is one at the Disneyland Hotel. Typically these type of events, there's like 575 nations, representatives, I should say, of nations. And this includes from our First Nations, our Oceanic, so forth, because everybody's looking for ways to help and expand our indigenous projects in all areas. And this is Native Nation events. This to the right here is Justin O'Connor. He is a full-blooded Irishman, but the heart of gold in working with Native America and indigenous people. And I've seen him do more than many of the full-bloods through his positive actions opposed to some others. So again, to me, it's all about, and imagine that I'm part Irish, Welsh, and Caddo Indian. I am on the Caddo official Indian roll, but my point is, I was raised, as many of you, go judge people, or people are judged by their actions of spirit, not the color of their skin, etc. So this is an award I received for at the event, honorary one from LA Board of Supervisors for my ongoing work with the military and communities since 1981. And again, that's on our website. This is an example of the room. And there's other, like you, as all of you know that have attended any events like this, there are rooms that have other people presenting. This was our panel on housing. So you can see it was very well attended. When I spoke to around the world development projects with my background in call centers, data centers, I was told by my elders and others that when I come to present projects within Indian country, there's going to be some that support it, and then there's others that are going to try and tear you down. So they suggested that I really come and prove it on quantifiable facts, not just that I have the credentials of a degree or whatever it might be to make that happen. I do not, by the way. My degree is from the University of Hard Knocks. So since I was 17, my mother was in a car accident, and 3 days later she went blind, legally blind. And being that my mom was raised us 3 boys on her own, I'm the middle of 3. I took the role on, which my elders told me as a youth I would end up having to do someday, which, you know, when you're that age, you're like, yeah, sure. Well, it happened. So I supported my mom and 2 brothers through college ever since then. My older brother is an Indian court judge, well recognized in all that arena for all of the Native American tribes. And he's a business attorney out of Austin, Texas, with his own law firm. My younger brother was in financial planning, etc., in the footsteps of my father, James Edward Moss, who was in the Hall of Fame for IDS, or now what is a Ameriprise, financial planning and understanding finances. So this room here is part of why I was proving this. I went to the island of St. Lucia, and this is one of the 278 people that I held in a training session. I had 3 classes this size every day, and training on all of the need of taking calls, any challenges that people would have, how to build relationships, overcome objections, etc. And this is, again, in the island of St. Lucia, is an outsourced call center. And what that means is we did things like Body by Jake, Suzanne Summers, Thigh Master, vitamins, Bibles, etc. So we would be subcontracted, and then we'd take a group of people and train them to take calls for that particular client. So this was 20, and it's still there running really good, 24/7. But as an example, I was offered to stay there, and they offered me citizenship because they are still under English rule. And they said, you provided your training and your people have provided more employment for one business in the island of St. Lucia other than slavery. So I was glad that we were able to help erase that horrible scenario. But this is all stuff that can be done in and around the world with everyone. And I've done this in India, Pakistan, the Caribbean, networked and did some work with Africa, etc. So that is that. Below that is, again, the 750 people. This is just a larger picture of financial literacy. But again, you can see there's many age groups, parents, kids, elders, looking at different types of understanding about insurance and why it's important, and reverse mortgage, and just all of the financial tools of how in this world do we better support ourselves and our families. And then here is when in 2016 we went to the United Nations, May 20th, and we presented at the United Nations. And this is Jay Winter Nightwolf here. Okay, he's Native American. He has a radio show. Here's Herschel Daniels, Queen Mother Blakely, and Jay, etc. in the picture. And you can see our official cash community in the room and everything. So again, we could document it. But Jay did the first, Jay Winter Nightwolf, who also heads up the Native American Black Congress for Native Indian, Black Native American Indian Congress, who represents how there's a lot of mixed blood of African American, which is in Canada. It's all the way through the US, where, like, you've heard of the freemen, slaves, etc. All of these things, that's part of his organization. And we did, for the first time in US history, a live radio show from the floor of the United Nations, sharing our voice on the needs from Canada all through the US and all the indigenous people. So, and then this relates to the picture I showed earlier of us meeting with Mayor Garcetti. This is again one of the awards. This is the official letter of recognition from the Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles and the mayors. And any of you that have ever worked with any of these US institutions, to get an official letter of recommendation is not an easy task. Then moving forward, there's many events around this that I've been involved with, but one of them with the World Conference of Mayors and Black Historical Towns and Settlements. This is Johnny Ford here, and this is behind the microphone, but is Reverend Al Sampson. And then Queen Mother Blakely, of course, who I probably should have mentioned first. But the reality is we spoke at Black Wall Street in Tulsa, and they had an event that I was honored to be a part of, participate in. And Queen Mother Blakely is also recognized by the Hopi Nation as Grandmother Grease Wood Woman, where she was given that name by a spiritual elder of the Hopi. Otherwise, names that are given to people, unless they can be quantifiably proven by people, then it's not truly that name. So I know the people that know the Hopi spiritual leader that gave her the name. So I recognized it. And she didn't even know I knew that till I called her grandmother and she started crying. And I said, I felt your spirit, and that's what I looked into. And she goes, yes, how'd you know I've worked with the nations? And so then she told me the story of her name, and I said, that all makes sense because they told me they recognize you. So, and then we spoke at the United Nations in April 21st, and I did put in the information in the chat. I really hope everyone goes to and this is the newspaper article about it, but I really hope you go to our website and you can actually download 162 pages of exciting reading of the breakout of with Herschel Daniels being the conductor of that, Friends of the African Union Black Folks Plan and the Indigenous Peoples Plan. And we presented all that in writing and did a live event with the people of Samoa, Indigenous people from Samoa and other nations. And again, they have this ongoing through the, and they just had it, which we just were at again, United Nations Indigenous Peoples Forum. And it is a voice that allows us to keep in the ears of people, if you will. This is actually our website front page. And this is when you go there, you'll see the download of the UN event and the plan, which includes obviously funding from like NCRC as an example. The relationship with NCRC with already signed agreements, that amount alone to go to Indigenous people is $88 billion. And that is in process right now. Okay. This is something I recommend every family do. It's a download financial survey, something we do with my background of helping people. And I recommend every family, every person do this and pass it to everybody. It's so that families sit down at what I call the coffee table or kitchen table talk, and you discuss your finances. And there's nothing there that we ask you that you are sharing any numbers, socials, credit cards, checking, nothing like that. However, you do need to get a better understanding of money in, money out, how and where can we save money, because then that helps us through our resources and our sponsors to help get you in front of someone through triage. So when they send that back to us, if they request, we're able to say, well, you're obviously having a main issue with taxes. You can't have a checking account. You're getting liens and levy with your work and the kind of business you do. And if you don't clear that up, how are you supposed to get on your feet properly? So that's the first area we need to work with. So again, we can help with that. But this is part of my disgust, I'll say, with churches, etc., that only give a box of food, clothes, blankets, which is all needed. But who is doing the financial survey? Why are you in this position? How can we help you get out of it? And what is the ongoing coaching and training? That is the missing piece to the world problem, people, in my opinion. And again, being in banking at the highest level for 32 plus years, that's what I've seen thousands and thousands of families, not just here, but all over the world go through, okay? So again, like they say, it starts from home, right? So that's that. And then I want to point out this reading solutions tab for those with children that are looking to read. It's similar to, this is by the Lumbee tribe. It's free, downloadable, some really nice books on like, African American people, history, Hispanic, Native America, etc. Not in great detail, but it's free and it helps the young kids keep reading. And then from there, it is designed to stimulate them into a software program that they can continue to grow and develop. And we're getting close to the end, I'm sorry to say. But this is ongoing projects as an example. This is, at that time, the only Native American VA veteran approved nonprofit. They're still up and strong, 24/7 call center. If you're a vet and you need help, suicide prevention, food, clothing, financial literacy, all that, you contact this organization and they will help best they can, okay? And they are out of Los Angeles. Andrew and I have talked about them before, and there's some other obviously great service in LA. I will say we're approved with the Military Collaborative, and I thought I knew a lot about the issues of the vets until I attended my first meeting there, and I literally had to walk out of the room crying. It is so sad. Sorry, what's going on with our vets? It just breaks my heart. My mother used to take us to the VA area down by UCLA, and we'd go there and we'd see this beautiful areas. Now when you go there, the grass areas near the properties are homeless people, vets, living in their car, nowhere to go, no food, and along with that come restroom issues, etc. And America is not doing what they need to take care of them. They're rah, sign up, but then when you get back, in too many ways, they're forgetting about them. So anyway, we're working to be a liaison there. And again, of course, with the Native America. This is our sponsorship page. We offer different types of sponsorships that allow us to go to some of the events that you saw earlier. And we encourage anybody that's able to in any way, and that includes in some cases trade out, to be a sponsor. And many of these are hot links, and you can go to that location, like the Chickasha Bank up here, right? That's the one I spoke of for the HUD 184. When you're looking at how, I don't have two nickels to rub together. How do I start and build my credit? Well, eCredible is who we recommend, and it's free. Yes, the word is free. And until you need that extra support, then it's there. But they have some of the people I've worked with all kinds of free financial literacy books, information. Just as our website, we have here you can get a book on financial literacy for free, and again, our help and support. I'm going to end real quick here, Lloyd, sorry. So again, the World Conference of Mayors, and then for all of you farmers and everyone else interested in climate, I was also flown to New Mexico and part of and spoke at the National Farmer and Ranchers Association, 3-day event, great people, a lot of things in process there out of Washington, D.C. And I'm going in May 9th through the 13th up to Alaska. And I've been invited there to be part on a panel with the Alaskan Native Corporations Association. There's over 1,000 of them up there and closely tied to Canada. So I and others that I recommended and stuff will be up there. Again, sponsorship helps with all that and donations. We also, again, obviously work with housing. These are pictures of some Native American houses, and this issue is still going on where many of them, again, no running water, buildings collapsing on them, not to mention the issues with asbestos and mold, etc., that affect the kids. And right now, every winter as an example, many of them with gas prices and heating, they die and they have nowhere else to go. And that's the challenge. I do believe in other services are helpful, but again, we tie in the financial analysis to try and help people. Here's me doing my best with me being out of shape now to unload water and food. And then this is some of the food distribution to families and communities. Over here to the right, he's blocked in the picture, but this is my son, Jonathan, who sadly transitioned. But we were here providing the government cell phones to families. And as an example, one of my great memories of Jonathan was we had a sergeant in the military that had been involved for years. He and his 5 kids with his wife came up to us and they all started crying because the wife and the father had phones. And he said, you know, we've never had a cell phone. We've never been able to afford it. Now I can keep better track of my kids and jobs and work. And when he left, Jonathan was like, Dad, did you hear that? They've never had a phone. He's a sergeant in the military. Why can't the VA help him? Why? And I said, exactly, we've got to change that. I was a keynote speaker as well as an example, Indigenous Peoples Day here in Lawton, Oklahoma, and on the web, and of course with the World Conference of Mayors. This is one of the most money strong organizations in Indian country. This is NIGA, Native American Indian Gaming Association. And this is one of the events where I brought IMF funds, World Development Funds to the table with Douglas, Dr. Mao, and she's a doctor as well. And of course, myself. I'm the good looking one. So these things we work towards, and in conclusion, I again keep asking on all these slides, how you or your company support, how can we help bring solutions of green energy and business development and structure, call centers, this is the Umatilla, etc., to bring business. And with that, my information's in the website, but again, these are our components, and we do have networks for service and procurement. And again, part of what we do is help. If you don't know what a Nessus code is, I recommend every business get a Nessus code. You can contact local SBA. They will help you with that process. And that helps you in bidding and winning projects for grants and funds. And the SAMS number, etc. There are organizations that can and will help you, and we'll help point anyone with that as well. But that's that, Lloyd, but I don't know if you have Q&A, or I probably took all the time.
Well, yes, but I'm going to again stop recording so we can capture this part of it, John. So give me just 1 second here.
1001.
Just hold on 1 second, please. I'm going to make a transition over to our next phase, but I'm going to put this slide there, stop recording, and then start recording again.